Hi everybody, and I'm sorry for the slight delay on this, and hello here too. My computer decided to have a life of its own from time to time, and I'm never quite sure why it is and when that is, really. Okay, so we had so far, and today's a bit of a funny one, we're doing sort of things a bit upside down, if anything, because technically we should have had bebop, and then we should have probably had Benson, Montgomery, and then Pat Martino, and then Joe Pass, possibly, you know, in a way. We sort of did it a little bit upside down. The trouble is Montgomery and Joe Pass really are, and Pat Martino as well, they have overlapping times where all of them were active at the same time. So it was Benson actually, in all fairness. And a natural build-up is what Nat was talking about last week too. Those guys were hard bop players, really. They were going away from the bebop a little bit. So they have bebop language. And the reason why we did it that way around is that we started off talking about the scales and the bebop scales. And those guys are actual scalar players. So Pat Martino is a scalar player. When you see his lines, they're very often scalic lines or scalar lines, more to the point. Sounds like Gaelic, isn't it? Scaling. Scalar lines, and they are having very strong arpeggios and scales as the main building blocks, such as we see in bebop players, really. It's a really big deal. Joe Pass and Wes Montgomery, sorry, Joe Pass is wrong. George Benson and Wes Montgomery are pentatonic players, mainly. Wes is a bit of an odd cat, because weirdly enough, as we probably expect from him, the least amount of school in that sense, or of educated playing, because he's not an educated player by a academic standard. He's incredibly knowledgeable about music. It's like enormous what he can do. Wes Montgomery. And Wes Montgomery started off being a Charlie Christian impersonator almost. So the first thing he did is he played, and all his brothers did as well. I think there's famous recordings of the Montgomery brothers, where they all played instruments one way or another, and I think the parents played, and you're ending up having Wes Montgomery, I think, starting off on a trombone, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't read up on this in a long time, but he started off on a different instrument first, and did this to quite a high standard. So when he arrived at a guitar, it wasn't like somebody just randomly walking by a shop thinking, oh, buy myself a guitar, and within 2 years I'm really great. Here's somebody who had done all the musical legwork, had some fantastic years, understands the idea of how to develop language and sound, and just now exposes himself through that on the guitar. Which I think is kind of, it's a good way of looking at this, because otherwise you can get quite frustrated by looking at that and thinking, it's like a Pat Metheny type of thing, but it's the same. He played a different instrument before that, and then he came to the guitar. So in our case, it was Montgomery then ended up doing this, and he had a gig first, playing only Charlie Christian solos, and then a long period of nothing. So his career was by no means a quick start. And then he got later discovered, I think he played some diner somewhere, and I must think Sonny Rollins, so somebody came by sheer fluke, and saying, hey man, this guy can really play, you need to sign him. And he called up his own record label, whoever that was at the time, and that's kind of how it happened. So Benson is a bit of a different cat. Benson is a direct disciple of Wes Montgomery. But that's how people used to play at the time. If you listen to hard bop players, you used to look into a different players. And when Grant Green, exactly right.
Both of them, I read an interview, they both said, I think it was a Benson interview, where they both went to a Grant Green concert and they were learning from him on the gig. We're not sitting in, but like watching him and being like, he can really play the melody, and that's how how they learn how to play the melody kind of.
And Grant Green again is a pentatonic player, massive pentatonic player. There were those hard bop guys. What they would do different from the bebop guys is the changes were a little bit less. They were often dominant bass changes, and they would play with a lot more groove. So they wouldn't do, in hard bop, you don't hear necessarily those driving beats going through at 250 BPM and loads of changes. If it gets fast, the changes often disappear. So not unusual in hard bop, you get a pentatonic melody. Dum da 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 dum da 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 bop bop dum da 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 bum da 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 bop bop. That's your melody.
Yeah.
And then they go and improvise over, let's say, a C7 chord for 8 bars or 16 bars, or like, you know, or maybe an A section that is almost almost on one chord, and a B section has some changes, or the other way around. So that was the big deal between it. And a lot of them were groove. It was all about the groove and how cool you would play. Yeah. So that's a new style of playing. All our language still applies, which we know. And I want to start us off with a little thing, which with Wes Montgomery, I thought loads of you guys will have checked out some stuff. Everybody will have checked out octave playing, and I've written down a couple of octave lines. But if we don't do that, that's almost not a problem, because that's the easiest thing to research. However, he did some other stuff, and I've got this here. If you look at, so it became a rather big one, and I already missed out loads of stuff. But I got so excited when I was writing the course notes. It's 4 pages. It's just loads of licks and lines and little concepts. So with Wes Montgomery, I concentrated a bit more on his playing concepts, so you can get the sound rather than worrying about the exact lines. Even though I've written also some lines down in order to contextualize it. Okay, so what I've written down here is a blues in B flat. It's a 1-4-5, as you can see. So now, Wes Montgomery used to do something very, very specific on this. He would go and play over each one of the 5 chords. He would play the 2 that belongs to it. Yeah. So if you're in B flat, then it's a 5 in E flat major. So the 2 belonging to that is F minor, and that's something very specific. But he wouldn't just do this in terms of in terms of his chord, his solo playing. He would also play chords from F minor over that. Yeah. So you have, let's say. Interesting, yes.
Yeah. Did you just, I saw you phrasing it with that blues note, and that ends up being a flat 9. And I was studying Grand Green all of the time. They were like the 1 chord, he'll be playing the flat 9. I'm like, why is he doing that? And that kind of maybe explains it.
So they call this process, and this is why we should have done probably Martino and Montgomery the other way around. Pat Martino is learned from Wes Montgomery, and Nat made a point of that last week too. He learned from Wes Montgomery, and like most people did. Actually, he's a bit like Metheny now. There's not a jazz player who's not at the very least listen to him. You know what I mean? You might not check him out as in learning his lines, but you can't escape him. And Wes was like this. I mean, he was a force. You know, he was a superstar. And so he ended up using this process of what's called minorization. Minorization. So every single time you have anything, you look at how it's related to its minor idea. And in the case, or the principle behind it is that you use, in front of a dominant chord, you use the 2 chord. And then he would do the same thing opposite. When he had a minor chord, he would use the 5 that would belong to it. For example, so this one you can see on a track. It goes like this. typical Wes Montgomery thing, and that's to do. And he used to play those voicings quite a bit. I'll show you quickly the voicings here. They're not written down there. So it's F minor, and then another F minor, just like a D shape. So you need the A flat on the top there. So semitone down. That's it. That's it. And then this one here. That's it. That would be typical Wes Montgomery shapes. Yeah. So you get. And again. And then the same thing from B flat. He plays a little turnaround, which I can't remember. On Caribe, yeah? That's it. First this one in the middle. It goes over the minor third. It's a D shape of the B flat minor chord. The D shape of a minor. That's it. That's the one. Yeah. Because I play this differently, isn't it? It looks a bit differently. I find it easier to do this, but I learned it right like this, and it allows me to have the finger. But I know loads of people they do that. Yes.
I anatomically don't have that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
I used to be so heavily into Joe Pass and never learned it any different. And so I remember how painful that was at the beginning. It's a couple of chords, that one, and the first inversion of a dominant 7 chord, which I always found a pain in the ass. Sorry, there we go.
Yeah, there's a lot of those on my fingers just anatomically can't play them. It's like James Brown, the Sex Machine, you know, you see the
Yes.
that chord, I can't play that chord.
So you have to, you just do it,
My joints, so I have to do like that.
Go all the way around, yeah. Oh, you don't need a root note on that one, so that's the only good thing.
Well, you could just do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for this, I have to do it like.
Yes. So it's. You're right, yeah. You can get around it by doing this. Like a quartal harmony, yeah?
Oh, okay.
Which is 8-8-9-9. And then. Is it Sting pestering you?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, can't you see how busy I am? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Here we go. So this is basically over a B flat blues. Yeah. So what we got is this one in scale and in. We have this in scale and in sound. Yeah. So the practice you would have to do is basically just playing up and down the pentatonics is one thing, but you can just play now nicely like this. And what I do is on this, and what Wes Montgomery does too, is he naturally presumes the 9 to be part of anything of the pentatonic. So it's added notes to the pentatonic. Rather than him thinking a Dorian scale, he thinks an added 6 and an added 9 as color notes. Yeah. So you get something like this, for example. Let's see if I can do this. Straight arpeggio, yeah, F C minor arpeggio. Yeah, so it's a very obvious thing. So now he might mix that up. So he might play. Yeah, so F minor, B flat, F minor, B flat. Back to F, so because you have the B flat anyway. Yeah, so you get really nice lines just basically by playing two triads, the 2-5-2-5-2-5, yeah? And you get really authentic lines, and then you go chromatically at it, and yeah, and you end up, having the bebop influence of the chromatic lines. That's it. You're having the chromatic lines from the bebop, you're having color tones, you're focusing on the 6 of the B flat chord when you do the 9 of the F minor. And you naturally, what you don't do is you don't play something that's heavily based on the root note of B flat, but you're focusing on the 5th, which is the F, which is your main point of sort of start and finish, because you're playing F lines, and that in itself is super valuable. That's one of those things where...
That sound, it's kind of like sussy the whole time.
Yeah, exactly right. That's
It's really
exactly
nice,
right. Yeah, it's exactly right. So, and then actually the one thing I wanted to show on top of this. So now the chords on the top of this. Oh, yeah, that was badly timed. Let me do this one more time for me up here.
To be F minor, yeah. The sound is obvious, yeah? And this is such a typical Benson does this all the time. Montgomery does this all the time. Yeah.
And it's basically you're using the different minor harmonies over that, yeah? So this way around, and the other way around, if you listen, for example, to, I've written it on the top here, if you check out a tune called Yesterday, which is a jazz stand, you can just type it in. It's strongly in D minor, yeah? It's like a proper D minor chord, yeah? He plays. Oh, sorry. That's such a West thing to do. So he has a D minor chord written in the chart, and he plays a G13 or 9, 13, exactly right, over that. And you get an instant West sound. He does this all the time. So he would then also play a line. So if the line goes, So that's the opposite, yeah? So you have a minor chord and you play the 5 that belongs to it, or you have a dominant chord and you play the 2 that belongs to it, in melody and in comping. And that's such an interesting thing, because this one, if you look at it, even if you play this, if somebody else plays a minor chord, so if you play for me this chord, yeah, so you do it together, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just huge harmonies, oh, you're great, but you're just adding 6s and 9s to that one. You have the minor 3rd in it, you have the 6 in it, you have the 9 on the top and the 5th. There's a D minor, 6, 9, yeah, or 13 in a way, and just a chord fragment, as you call that, rather than the full chord. Yeah? And that's a lovely it's a lovely way of playing. Modern players take that same approach, like Coltrane used to do, but also now players, and they would then remove this even further. All over D minor, yeah? So you have this symmetry, and Coltrane was really responsible for that later. West would have not done things quite that out or that obvious. They used chromaticism for that. You know, that it was a different time with different things. The sheets of sound, all of that, that came much later. Really, when I say much later, so Brecker Brothers really made a big deal out of it, and Coltrane pioneered it really. And so we get into that. Some great lines there, but it's all different. The sound is entirely different of that. Cool. So that's kind of what I want to say. So now if you look at the next line, the pentatonic thing I've done, so then I've written a little line down there on F minor, just to show you a little idea here. Yeah, the first bit here on that line is there's a F minor bit in there, 5 root 5, and then it goes into a B flat bit. Also in a G minor first, so F minor, G minor, and then it goes into B flat major. Those are the 3 elements in there, and just some nice rhythm with it. That's it, nice one. That's from Stone from Full House, which is I just love that solo. It's so good every time. That's over F minor. It could also be over B flat major. It wouldn't matter. Yeah, that's it. Or B flat major. B flat dominant. Excuse me. Dominant. Sorry. That's it. So if you play 1, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't matter. Full House is in 3/4, and I've transcribed it in 4/4 on there. It doesn't matter, but I like the idea of so, you know, it moves on from there. I think it's really nice to just see how that's constructed, how those different intervals are created. I've written the intervals on the top they actually come from it. But if you would think those intervals, you would miss the trick of this is short, small phrases of triads, and they're put on top of each other. So the other thing you can do with this, and this is for Benson true, as well as if it's for Wes Montgomery, as well as it is for Miles Davis, as well as it is for Benson. Did I say Benson? I think I said Benson already. You can always play the next diatonic step up. Yeah, we talked about this before, where you get all the, and that's the same thing really. Yeah? So if you play G minor over F minor, so if you play for me, play the chord for me, 1. That's G minor. Sorry. I can't play major third. I can't make that work. That was bad. Yeah, that's your G minor. It's a lovely sound, isn't it? It's beautiful open. And this is, that's right, it's a C sus. Yeah, you're totally right. It's a sus sound. So go up a tone from wherever you are. And so now George Benson would do this the same way than Montgomery. They would play F minor, G minor, F minor, G minor, F minor, G minor. And you hear whole lines like this, yeah, going through, yeah? You would do, that's a very typical thing to do, yeah? And I just literally go here, F minor, doing maybe a little, because we're in bop after all, yeah? So a bit of chromaticism from one chord tone to another. So this is going here from the flat 7 to the 5, no problem there. And then you do G minor. That's it. And then you go here. You could even go if you want to. And then you go. That's it. Yes, you go. Maybe you want to do. And then you do, and now you want after 7, you don't want after 6, so obviously it's the major 7. That's it, yeah? So if you play the chord again, yeah, that's it. Sound, yeah? And you get immediately that hard bobby sound out of it, and a vibe. Yeah. You know, you get immediately, and that's just by playing our pentatonics. We don't yet, doing the lines really. Also, when you transcribe them, Benson, when I transcribe Benson, all of it is pentatonic, and then there's some scalar fragments in there, and I've tried to find examples that they're really obvious for what he does, in order to demonstrate it, and it's so pentatonic-y, you can't escape it, and it sounds so cool when he does it. He sounds so hip. Okay, to say something more about Wes, what he used to do is he used to use something called a block chord idea, and it's a really nice way normally to warm up. So you use the high 4 strings, and you harmonize the scale on the top. Let's take an F minor scale since we're there. That's what I've written down. F Dorian. Yeah, that's our F Dorian on the high E string. Now we're gonna go play a chord with it, and what Wes used to do, and like a lot of guys, they use the same shapes for 2 consecutive chords. Right? So that's the first 2. Then for the next 2, or ours here. This one. That's it. No, you can't have the. No, it's fine. No, ignore everything I wanted to say. That's it. It's all F minor. It's all F minor, yeah. So all of them are F minor chords. That's right. And then that's it. What have I written down for the last one? Oh yeah. Roman Empire. sound. It's true, too many fourths in it. Makes sense? So you need, I think you got a right chord and the wrong fret. Semitone down? That's it, there it is. And then upper tone, that's it, perfect. So it's, so you got, no. That's it. And then Benson would go one step further. He would go and use that, and then use in between, not Benson, sorry, Wes Montgomery, and used in between a diminished chord as a 5 chord to link them. So we play C, F minor, C, sorry. No. Sorry, I got myself there, I'm caught on. Sorry, excuse me, my fault. Of course, you're absolutely right. Sorry, C7. But okay, so now coming back to this one, the reason that I now remember why this is done like this and not like this. So, if you want to still have the scale on the top, yeah. So now one of the diminished chord gives you some of the scale. That's it. Yeah? And then that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah? So now this, you could do, it's a little chord lick. That's it, yeah. And that's very Wes, yeah, when you hear that. And that's that sound of that era as well. A lot of guys sounded like this, yeah. And it fits over an F minor chord, and very often, so Wes had this build-up, you all heard about this, I'm sure I don't have to say too much about this. He used to normally start off playing single note lines, then go into octaves, and from octaves go into chords. And that was very often his sort of build-up on the on all of that, you know, on his solos, you know. And it's not said that every solo had to be like this, but it was sort of a bit of a formula you can make up. So very often you start off with a little pentatonic, as say. Then it goes. Really, that's kind of that's kind of sort of the different building blocks from which he builds his solos. So when you think of this, and this is very static, of course, you can do the same thing with a major scale, but you can, if you think of the concept of minorization now again, it doesn't matter that this is F minor, as long as you know.
B flat, that's the same thing.
It's
with the
an E flat, more to the point, yeah. If you're an E flat, because it was F Dorian is what we did. So you're an E flat or B flat. Mixolydian,
yes,
yeah? So you can use all of that.
That's what I meant.
That's exactly right.
That becomes.
Yes. same. So the C sharp diminished chord or C7 flat 9 is what you would do.
If you were B flat, it would now become
The same chord.
same
On if you so you're thinking in B flat major now, so you're in G.
dominant.
So B flat dominant is the same chord.
Well, still a C.
C sharp.
Yeah, diminished
Or C7 flat 9. Oh, sorry. Now I understand the question. Excuse me. Yes. Yeah. No, not at all. Now I understand the question. So you would have an F7 if you wanted this. Would be F sharp diminished. Would be the F sharp diminished chord is what you're after there in order to.
So you'd have to do.
That's it. That's
You
it.
change it then, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Then you can do that exactly. So you get the scalar notes again with the next chord. That's it.
Then you have to go. That.
And then Pat Martino took this to an extreme with his minorization. He took that bit, and he's seen everything in the end minor. And there's a whole concept about this minorization where they're looking at every minor. You can look at Dorian and then how it resolves to each key. So you can have one static Dorian scale, the same one, and you can see how it moves out in different keys and in. It's a playing concept. I'm not sure how much I like this. Because it's a bit random, but if it's controlled, it can be quite cool, and you get some cool sounds and some not so cool sounds, I think. And then you get the idea that every chord can be related to anything in minor, of course, because we basically you're just saying we're looking at it from a different angle from the same scale. And then it comes down to the fact us practicing some cool lines and being able to kind of go, okay, now I know how they relate to the chord I'm playing over.
Yeah, 'cause you can phrase sentences better in certain shapes and stuff, can't you?
I think so, yeah. And if you transcribe Benson or Montgomery, you're always ending up having guitar lines.
Yeah.
They don't blaze things that's outrageous. If you modern players, you're much more prone because they stole from saxophone players and from other instruments. They may have not really done guitar lines, but you don't get outrageous intervals or really strong just finger sort of exercise-based stuff. They're all stuff that lies under your fingers and it's really easy to play, and it's just a matter of how much time you have to get it up fast. But it's not it's not like something thinking, oh my goodness, this is like technically unachievable. Cool, lovely. So I go and yes, at this stage I'm gonna go leave West Montgomery, even though there's some more stuff on there, and I want to go into a bit of Benson. And Benson is an interesting old cat. I've written down some octave stuff for West Montgomery. It's a really cool little line, also an F minor.
Yeah.
I've written down F minor and B flat on the top. Sort of, you can use it over either one of them. It's again stolen from Full House, and I've put it in a 4/4 rather than 3/4. Take the elements of this. Don't worry about the exact timing. When you look at many of those lines, they're straight 8 notes. Because that's the style. 16ths and 8 notes is the style with a bit of triplets in between. Yeah. So here's the thing. So Benson is much more of a pattern player. When you hear him, a lot of things he does are to do with symmetrical patterns and ideas. Yeah. And one of the things he does is this, for example, a little pentatonic idea. Sorry for that. It's a little pentatonic idea. He does stuff like this. Yeah. It's fairly straightforward. Yeah. So it's in B, in A minor, that's it.
Wrong
That's
shape
it. Yeah, it's fine. So that's it. That's Benson. Benson does this a lot. Those type of patterns. Yeah, that's great. I think it's awesome. Yeah, it's very cool. But you can see how this became, part of the language, really with it. So. Don't be afraid of doing that in your. So this is an exact line he played in a tune. I just made the whole pattern out of it in the end, just to show one of the. So you don't and that's always the thing. When we're playing, we're thinking, oh man, it's Benson, and we gotta get our best chops out. And he's thinking, oh no, it's just the cool timing. He's very good on his rhythmic phrasing, and he's not afraid of just playing a clear statement, simple or difficult. Yeah. And the other thing George Benson did was, that's it, yeah, it's basically that. The other thing George Benson did is he also used to use the octaves but they used to put an extra fourth or fifth in it, yeah? So let's say if you do, if we go back to the F minor here, instead of playing, if you play the F Dorian, that's, by the way, that's a thing that's done. So yeah, sorry, actually I have to come from the F and then you sort of, it's almost not a note, yeah? And again.
Where is that from?
From the F. I'm just never leave the F.
Never the, where did you start from?
Yeah, from the, I think I started from the D.
Okay.
That's it, yeah, so you get that. And then swing. That's it, just to use that Dorian sound, yeah? So Benson would do this. So, use the extra fourth in there, and you hear that a lot. Makes sense? So you're putting a 4, yeah, in some of them, so. It's a very typical thing to do. Yeah, it doesn't sound so great when it's all the way through, but there's some lines of Benson where he literally does it all the way through. So you would do on the even on the octaves here, those sort of things. Even though it would be better if it would stay in one key, isn't it? You know, and use that all the way through. That's it. And a lot of them would do sort of the ideas of going up in fours anyway on and down, yeah? So you're doing... So instead of going up a pentatonic, you go up just simply just a shape. Yeah. I think as a guitarist, from a guitarist point of view, Benson would also play this with his thumb. Makes sense? Yeah. So this is a thing he added to that, and it's a very typical Benson sound. He does a lot of double stoppy ideas. That you all know from Give Me the Night, everybody knows that. Yeah. But he would do this the same way he would do those sort of sounds, yeah? That's it, yeah. Fourths and fifths.
There's a tune I've transcribed.
It's on Breezin', I think. He does a lot of that.
On this, we know he goes to the major, he does the key change, he goes to that major bit. He kind of does a modernization on that as well. He does like something weird. Yeah, I think he's like playing obviously G minor, sorry, because it's the major. Then he does that on the G minor. It sounds really
with that sharp 11 against that. Yeah.
I think that's
but that would be more just him thinking G minor. What he does is when he plays a pentatonic, he does the same thing then West Montgomery. We get to that in a second. Actually, just go to that line. It's a good line. I can show it on there. Where is it? Go on to bar number 27. Bar number 27. It says clockwise. It's from the tune clockwise. And this is back in his really heavy hard bop quartet time. It's usually a saxophone player. I can't remember who's on saxophone for this one. Because it's fast. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so it's like... That's it, yeah? But that's almost like, we're not too worried about this. So even if you go to bar number 30 where the line really started, I just wanted to show with that his repetition of theme. Yeah, doing stuff like this when he gets fast. And very often he would be locked in sort of an 8 notes or 16 sing. And this one is, again, it's at 260, 270 BPM. So the 8 notes becomes very racy very quickly. Yeah? And now Now, but here the line, if you look a bit further, it's literally this. And here, that's the pentatonic. G minor pentatonic in there. That's bar number 30, second half. But actually he doesn't do that, he plays it with the 6, yeah? And then 5th. Yeah, so he would hammer them on, yeah, pretty sure. I should have probably marked this like this, I'm so lazy transcribing. That's it, yeah. That's it. Nice one. And then he goes typical Benson style. That's it. The line would be over. The line would be over G7. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, yeah. Sure why I didn't write this there. Yeah. It's one of those. Yeah, so he sets it up with the. So the whole thing I played slowly, just from bar number 30. Totally. And again, it's that same principle. Yeah. Proper country line. Yeah, for sure, isn't it? Yeah.
Open string.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, totally. It's a banjo roll right there. But he would do a lot of those things, and those guys started already being a bit more hybrid. Yeah. So this is a typical thing. So this idea of playing blues and pentatonic is really, really strongly ingrained in him. There's, for example, I've transcribed. This is a really oh yes. If you look at bar number 20, and you might have to fill this in, it says the Borgia stick, or whatever that is. That is pronounced Borgia stick. It's a pentatonic line. Like this, yeah. 1, 2, 3, and then he goes into a E major triad. Yeah, this is him over a 2-5-1, and you'd argue that he's not at all minding that 2 chord. He just plays. Plays A minor over that one. He does not at any given point acknowledge that flat 5 in there. Even to the point where he's hinting on a major 3rd with that. Yeah? And the only thing he does then is like just adding that one note in there. Yeah. So you get. And then he just plays a straight Dorian scale. There's a straight up Dorian, and of course, the first 2 are 8 notes, and only from there you have the triplet. Are you taking it from the E? Yeah. So it's 3, a 1, 2. Yeah, that's it. Do gum ba ba dam 1, 2. Oh, sorry. 1, 2. And that's again at like 280 or something, or 220. It sounds so cool because it's quite straight. Even though he has a beautiful swing when it goes to the that's right. He gets beautiful swing when he plays medium tempo swing. He swings beautiful. It's a great swing for you. But it almost becomes straight when it's fast. So you really you're on your, you know, like you would play any 16s really, with very, very little swing in it. And that actually was the start of the modern players. Because now some players, they don't swing at all. It's just straight like a machine gun. That's how they play, and that's their style, and they make a decision.
Yeah.
And to swing is a feel, and everybody can do this by themselves, really. Okay, so that's a really nice line for that, but you can see it's pentatonic heritage in there. On a 2-5-1, so that's A minor 7, E7, so B minor 7, flat 5, E7, and then A minor in the end where he just plays the scale. So there's a 3-bar phrase. I should have written the chords on the top there. Sure, why I did that? I did it in some places and I didn't do it in other places. It's so telling that he's ignoring all of this and only makes the 5 chord. And that's again something.
You can even argue that it's just enclosure.
Yeah, oh, totally, yes, an enclosure, absolutely. I mean, that's just musically well played, I think, if it's an enclosure in the end, because that's what you want to do. But he actually minds that G sharp.
Yeah.
He actually does do something out of that, you know, he doesn't just ignore it in there. But he does it together with the G natural, you know, in the same bar.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of, you know, that's sort of pentatonic and then an added G sharp, a bit like Santana would have done. You know, you have an A minor pentatonic and you use your major 7 when you need it, if and when, rather than thinking of it as an entire new scale. And also then playing the Dorian up, and you get this sort of, you know, melodic minor sound really without really ever doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so that's something. So next time you see a 2-5-1, you know, think just a 5 chord in minor and play the pentatonic that's over the 1 chord anyway. It just thins out the chords and the amount of harmonic knowledge you have to give in your own lines. So it just makes you play cooler lines, you know, because you have more time.
Yeah.
So the next one, the next line is over A dominant, and I just like this because it just shows Benson is a blues player more than all of them together. He's a blues player, and that's sort of a typical thing we do.
Did he start by playing blues?
Say again?
I think he started by playing blues.
Well, he was a pop star,
Yeah.
but he had a failed career by the time he was 14.
Yeah, I read somewhere he said, I'm shit at blues, so I might as well just start playing jazz or something like that. Like, I'll never be good at blues, so I might as well try jazz or something like that. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing.
Yeah.
But he already his first career was failed they tried to be like a black rock and roll type of band.
Oh, okay.
Now I never heard any music like that. Probably, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Someone's got that record.
Yeah, and then he had to, you know, get himself back in the game, and then had launched another career. By the time he was 19, he was one of the best jazz guitarists in America. You know, he's an incredible guy, and it's cool. Even today, when I listen to him, I'm thinking it's not about that he's got the best lines such as, but he's got the best stuff for the music. He's just got a thing. Even though there's a great recording you want to check out with him and Robin Ford. They play together, and Robin Ford takes a solo, and then Benson comes in on a clean guitar, and it's a force. The guy's an absolute force on the instrument. It's like this attitude. He's got total confidence in his ability.
He's a rock star on a jazz guitar.
Absolutely, and that is a wonderful thing to witness. And at the same time, all I've seen is a humble guy. You know, he's a lovely guy, very giving, very generous, and yeah, I've not seen him being in any ways a douche.
No.
Yeah, unlike Robin Ford. Yeah.
The masterclass he did.
This time around.
No,
It was a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, Nat and me were there. John Bishop, Matt Haslett.
Haslett.
Oh man, he was not happy. No, apparently he was loaded a bit on the old whiskey. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So this next line is on A.
That's exactly a Grant Green line I transfer. Exactly the same one.
You know, so that's that language. Yeah, it's a great sound though. I love it. Yeah. And then you wonder where Pat Martino got the whole. Of course, it's part of the. It was part of the, and what they tried to desperately with all of those things is to create something that's bigger than the single note clean sound.
Yeah.
That's where the chords came from, to just create a wider thing. Because otherwise, you have to have line after line after line, and it becomes quite boring. I guess, and it becomes also quite physically demanding to still get on the top. So sonically, the guitar is a thin instrument, but that's a cool line. So this is over A. So you're ending up with this. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah? And it's so obvious. Now, in order to do him a bit more justice, I've transcribed a little bit of something which I think is a stroke of genius. This is him playing a chord melody, and he really shines on that. Wes Montgomery always did, but he really shows that he knows what he's doing. So he plays all those pentatonic lines, and you could get a bit of a feel of, well, he's a great player, of course, great technical ability, fantastic rhythm, his time is flawless, faultless. But then you can see here quite how much he gets when it comes down to playing chord melody stuff. This is a 2-5-1 in D flat major, yeah? So E flat minor is the first chord. And then it goes like this. That's it, and then the diminished chord. And then probably hammer on pull off, yeah? D flat major. Great resolution again. Yeah. This is beautiful. That in itself is a stunner, right? There's no two ways, and he does this so well. So it's E flat, yeah? Then he uses the A diminished chord, which is the A flat dominant 7 flat 9 chord. Then in the 9, both 9s to be beautiful inside again, and uses all the semitones to resolve. Yeah? That is a stunner of a line. Don't worry about the timing. It's the line. It's not exactly how it's played. That's it. That's it. Then. That's a stunner, and you know you can play this. You know you can play. You know, it's more the chords he uses to get there, or you play. That line. So typical thing he does, by the way, I haven't transcribed this, but I show it anyway, so it's on the video. When he plays a major chord, here's a typical line. Yeah? He goes. So. And often what he does, he loves sliding into stuff. And then he goes from here into the minor, yeah? That's it. Yeah, it's sort of a typical. And then just your B flat minor really afterwards, in your natural minor. That's it, yeah, so one more time here, that's 14, 13, 9, 10, 11, so the major triad, then 10, 11, 8, and then just here the, that's 9, 8, 6, more for the benefit of the video to record it, so we might not be able to see
I've got one where he goes, same thing but up, he goes F minor.
That's a very yes. They all do it, yeah, yeah. He's a good sweeper. There's a lot of sweeping going on. Yeah.
So what was it from this position?
So that's right. There's F minor,
Okay.
and then you go, into that's right, and then you go into the D flat major like this. And it's very economical, isn't it? When you play it, you think, yeah, sure, as a guitarist, that makes sense. Yes, yeah, nice. And then, yeah, lovely, very good, beautiful stuff. There's so much good, so many good things in there. The one thing I want to quickly show is away from just the pentatonic type of stuff. He uses a lot of chromaticism in his lines. The line, if you look at bar number 15, it's over an A flat major chord, yeah? And what he does is, for example, something like this, over A flat. Number 15, that's the second page. Yeah? So, but when you look at this, he's very clever again. Remember, all our bebop lines live off the fact that you're trying to have on the downbeat a chord tone or at the very least a scale tone. Yeah. So here, when you play that line, the timing is important. One of the few times on that sheet. All the other ones you can just pick elements out of it and ignore the timing really. Because they're just, they're quite diatonic. But here, this one, you have to start on the offbeaters. So you get on that downbeat, you get a major third and a root, yeah? So 2, 3, 4. It's then and so a couple of elements he does here, and this is something I want to point out, and again it shows that he knows what he's doing. Look at this. First bit is obviously in A flat dominant, yeah? Even though this is a sharp 9 as a note, because it's on the offbeat, all it does is makes this note stronger. It may as well go. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. It's just a wrong note into a right note from the offbeat to the downbeat. Yeah, that's the key here to it. So don't overanalyze that first note. And if you don't like it, start on B2. Yeah, start with that line. So you really know you're on it. Okay, so that first note is an if you want to. Yeah, but then the next bit. So this is all chromatic, but every single time you're on a downbeat. So this one here, downbeat, downbeat. That's it. You're back on a downbeat on the 5th, back on a downbeat on a major 3rd. So what you're really playing is just the arpeggio and use chromatic notes in the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's typical bebop language. That's it. So it starts. So it goes from 7 down to A flat and then back up and down. That's it. Now here. So, and I want to quickly say something to this. Yeah, he plays A minor. Obviously A minor over A flat. So this is your box standard altered idea, yeah, where you go a semitone above and you play a minor, it's just a minor anything, really. Some people play Dorian semitone above, that's Pat Martino, for example, does this quite religiously. Instead of melodic minor, play Dorian. Or they play both 7s very often. So they don't really, so you have both 7s and then A minor, that's a Pat Martino special, and And so Benson here does the same thing. Yeah, and then goes into the sharp 9 of it. That's it. And then plays the a C augmented triad, yeah? So it's really what he plays, yeah? Which is all part of A melodic minor, yeah? So this is C augmented is the 3rd chord in A melodic minor, yeah? Makes sense?
Yeah.
And then enclosure.
You play like that. Quite a big stretch.
I would describe that he may not have done that. He may have done some arpeggio there. But then you can't get back down there. So I was between I'm sure he's finding the perfect fingering for the bus. Yeah. But what I liked is the fact that having an A, then augmented as the next bit. So it's major 7.
First fret, G string.
Yeah.
It's good.
Oh yeah, probably. Because that's that would make a lot of sense. And oh yeah. So it resolves to the D flat, then to the major 3rd. So what this is basically, it's playing A flat, sorry, into 4, like a typical blues thing to do. And I just think, you can just take any part of this lick, you can adjust the concept behind it. Yeah, or actually, yeah, that would work a tree, yeah? So just using an augmented minor chord and an augmented chord works really, really well. And what a lot of guys do is, so it's A minor, then A flat major, then C augmented. Oh, sorry. That's it. Yeah, nice. Lovely. So again, it's the ways he shows rather than, with all of those things, I would be always, you can have the exact Benson lick, that's one thing, but there's hundreds of licks you can transcribe. What interested me in this is that he really shows harmonic content in his line playing, really knowledge, about, okay, this is melodic minor, those are scale degree chords. With him, I can never quite figure out what he knows and what he doesn't know.
Yeah.
It's hard. Have you ever watched his
DVD, yeah.
teaching? It's a great DVD because he plays brilliantly. So he starts off something, goes, oh, you could play this, and he starts really crap, but you could see his musical mind sort of works it, and after a while, it's just the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can just see how he's just married to the guitar. It's one thing.
Yeah.
So I'm really amazed by that. But with it, you don't know what he knows and what he doesn't know. Some of it could be attitude or the feeling, that he has to, that he has to do more or less, in order to be authentic, to himself or to his style or to what he wants to be. I don't know, or he really, doesn't know the technical terms. A bit like Chopin's, you can't really figure out. You can't just play like this and not know shit. There's no way. There's no way because
just thinks of it as a thing, or like Django thought of it.
Yeah, like a thing. It's just a lick, another thing. Yeah, that's right. But they got the years really also to go with it. Benson has the years to go with it. That's for sure. It's his ability. I didn't want to go into all of this. I thought about this maybe to do a scat solo type of thing or something. But you all know about this, and the lines don't change because of it. That's just a way to approach it. And of course, I encourage everybody to sing along to your line, especially when you practice. What happens is that you're naturally having more breaks in your playing and you're having more repetition. It seems to us more natural to to do that, and you could become more rhythmical by singing along. That's, I think it's quite a natural thing to do. And I used to go all last year through a whole bunch of gigs where all I did was singing along with things. I just feel I annoy the audience after a while. So you know, my voice is, you know, not Benson's voice. Few's voice is this, and then also I did this for my benefit to play better rather than for the benefit to enhance the sound of the music. Where Benson made a feature out of it.
Yeah.
You know, and so my singing along is a bit more like Keith Jarrett's grunting along to his own piano solos. You know, it's quite disturbing. You know, something like this. Anyway, okay. So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining in, and the links are sent to you.